I'm going to sue you regardless.
You're going to see me or sue me?
I'm going to sue you regardless, even if you let me know that we're recording. Because even though we're recording and that you told me, I don't consent to you uploading this using my likeness. You're going to have to insert someone else physically. You can use my voice.
I can insert an emoji and just keep it over your face.
That's fine. That's perfectly fine.
Is that acceptable?
But I get to pick the emoji.
Is it just going to be a giant middle finger?
No.
That's what mine would be.
No, I was thinking of just it being the eggplant, just to, emphasize that I'm a dick. Or we could use the banana to where I'm still a dick, but people want to unravel me.
What about the poop emoji?
No, because I'm not a piece of shit.
You are a shit, though. You're not a piece of shit. You're just the entire dump.
Which, that emoji is not the entire dump. There's still stuff coming.
I don't know that I've ever taken a shit and it came out like in that circular.
Well, you have to swivel on the toilet.
Oh, I had no idea. If I'd known that, all my poops would have been a lot more artistic.
But you have to have the know, like ahead of time, that you're going to be shitting like frozen yogurt, which you hardly ever do know.
I would think it would fall apart just in the water.
This is where people don't get it. You have to, beforehand, if you have the time, fill your toilet bowl with toilet paper so it just kind of sits on the layer of toilet paper and it doesn't fall apart. It just kind of rests, and it doesn't even go in the water. It just kind of permeates and festers in the air.
I would think that would because you have to flush the toilet at some point, and if you've got enough toilet paper in the toilet bowl to hold a turd, it would clog your drain immediately.
No, it won't. I've done this. It won't clog the drain.
I don't even know if I want to know why, but I'm gonna ask. Why?
I was sick and I knew that I was constantly having that kind of bowel movement. So I was like, you know what? It doesn't take a whole lot of toilet paper to keep shit from sinking down. You just gotta layer it well enough, and then you let it sit and kind of absorb the water to where it kind of strengthens itself a bit, and then you go. See, thankfully, when I was sick, I had 2 bathrooms that I could use to where I'm like, okay, I'll let this one build up and become the perfect podium, because I know I'm gonna have to keep going. And then once it was ready, I'm like, okay, I can. All in the hips.
How old were you?
I was 17.
Why?
Why? I was sick and bored.
And you thought, you know what the perfect thing would be for me to do? Not take a book to the bathroom to read while I'm shitting my guts out. No, I'm going to poop in a circle.
And build basically a poop pyramid of froyo. And then but here's the thing, I didn't flush it until, because my dad was away, because he was doing 2 weeks on and then 1 week off. So basically I was just waiting for my mom to get home to see it, so I could hear that, oh good God! And I kept the bathroom door shut, so that way the smell just filled.
You were a nightmare child.
I was, and I'm proud of that.
What I don't fully understand about the writing community is because a lot of people talk about how they're first-time authors. And they're just looking for a little bit of love. And it's like, why are you doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why? Well, I wanted to write a story. Yeah, but why?
That's why it's like, because I always...
It's not that you shouldn't or that you can't, just why? Because if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, it's gonna reflect in your work. And a lot of it sucks.
And it's not even like we're ones to talk, really. Like, because like if you could, like, on the grand scale of things, like if you were to compare to all of literature throughout creation, we're really not ones to talk. But I feel like we know when we read something that's below our skill set.
I think anyone who spends any amount of time reading knows when they're reading something that has been written by someone who hasn't spent any amount of time developing their skill set. And that's what I don't, and that's part of what I don't understand about the writing community on Twitter. Like, nobody really is vested in expanding their skill set.
No. They get to a point where it's like, okay, I can write and tell the story that doesn't sound like I'm just rambling for the most part. But it's still not quality?
Okay, so I have this book by Elizabeth Yates.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you know this, but I'm also equally sure there are a lot of people who don't know who Elizabeth Yates is. Someday you'll write.
Yeah.
Okay. Elizabeth Yates wrote something like 40 kids novels. Like I grew up reading a lot of her work. And this is a book that she wrote because she had two friends who wanted to be writers, but they didn't know where to begin. And a lot of if you look up a lot of writing materials, and we've done this too in the past, if you look up a lot of writing materials, you get a lot about technique, you get a lot about language and wordplay and putting the way to put it all together, i.e. formatting, i.e. submissions. Like, you don't actually get the beginning stage. Like, you don't get in a blueprint, as it were.
Yeah.
Like, for just where do you start? A lot of writers just assume that you start. And it's one of the things that she suggests for early writers, be an apprentice first.
Yeah.
And that means that means you have to learn to use the tools of the trade, and books are one of those tools. So you have to read a lot of books. Well, that's all well and good, except that what are you reading when you read the books? Like she says in this, pick a book that you love, and like a book that you really enjoy, and don't just read it to get through the story. Don't just read it for all the ups and downs and the things that happen. Like, really savor each word. Look at how the words play together inside the paragraph. Look at what words the author used and like why did they use them. Like, actually spend some time reading it and breaking it down.
Yeah.
And that'll give you an understanding of what that author was trying to convey, and it will help you. It'll help set the foundation for how you want to convey an idea. Like you don't have to write like all of your favorite authors. You just look at how they did it and let that be the foundation, and then you build from that.
Yeah.
And I feel like every first-time author should read this book. I did.
Mm-hmm.
And this was how I developed some of my techniques, people watching, which tells you how to develop a character, how to begin, how to end, plots and characters, how to put it together. You don't need Scrivener. You don't need
Stephen King's
fancy. You don't need a software to help you put it together. You don't even really need a massive book of notes.
No. You don't even really need all that much know-how in terms of formatting. You just need to know some simple basics of how to operate either Word or LibreOffice. Just a basic Word program. That's it.
Yeah, no, it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to do fancy corkboard organizations. Like you can, but you're gilding the lily in a lot of cases, especially with the books that some people write where it doesn't matter whether or not you used a corkboard. None of this is fleshed out enough. So what was even the point of all those notes? This is the book. But what I don't like, that's what I don't understand is like, you want to bitch and moan that people don't like your book, but you haven't even taken the time or put in the effort to develop the skill set to write a good book. Why should people buy it?
Yeah.
Like, why? Because the story is valid? No, it isn't.
No, it's not. And like, that's another little phrase or saying that I see on Twitter all the time where it's like, your story is needed or something, or people need your story. It's like, no, they don't need anything from you.
Nobody's interested in your story. They're interested in their story. Yeah. They're reading your story because they're looking for someone to identify with them. Yeah. So if you're going to put yourself into it, don't tell everyone.
Yeah, don't tell everyone unless you're willing to label that book as a memoir.
Yeah. Like, you have to... Firstly, your story isn't valid because nobody gives a shit about you. That doesn't mean that you as a person are less than human. That doesn't mean that you haven't been through some shit. That doesn't mean that you haven't learned some lessons. It's just that nobody cares about you.
Yeah. They'll say they do, but at the end of the day...
Some people do, but readers don't.
Readers don't.
And no. It was like I said in the other chat, that people who care about what happened to you care because they've got that foundation of your book. Mm-hmm. And that's the only reason. Like, that's once they've got that basis, once that understanding is established, that this is something they can identify with. Oh, it's also something that happened to you. Wow, that's really great. So, now you get to matter.
But I think that's where the shift is sort of reversed, especially because a lot of the people who are buying people's books from Twitter,
right,
are other writers. You're not getting just a reader.
No.
And that's also why I think there's this inflated sort of review process where, even if it was like a 3 or a 2 or less, a 1, they're going to give it at most a 3. Like a 3 is basically the new 1. Like you might as well just
I think a 1 was the new 1.
But... No, I'm talking about like because they won't go below 3. 3 is the new 1. So basically, you're not giving them a 5-star review. You're giving them a 3-star review. But 3 is 1, 4 is 2, and 5 is 3. That's basically what it's come down to. Because they completely negate 2 and 1s. Like, if it's less than 3, I won't even leave a review. It's like...
Why?
Why? Because you fear retaliation? Because... what?
Well, and part of it is this need... this weird need that other authors have, or that I suppose just authors have in general, because sometimes I feel this way too, where like you want other authors to respect your work, and if they give you less than 3 stars, then that means they hate you.
No, I just hate
and
your
it's
work.
like, no.
There was one...
No.
There was one...
And if you give, like, if I gave you a 2-star review, you would know that it's not you.
No, yeah, I would know that it's not me. You just didn't care for the work.
Yeah, like...
And you would know the same thing if it was
stop making
me
everything
to you.
about you. Sorry, no, that's just...
Yeah.
That's how I feel about the writing community in general. It's like, it's not... And your craft has to be about the craft. It's not about you.
And the thing is, like, if you're so concerned, like, if you as a fellow writer are so concerned with the retaliation of the writer you're reviewing, set up an anonymous Amazon account to review, so you can give your honest review. And then just, if someone ever asks, if that author or writer ever asks, like, oh, like, when are you going to finish the book, or when are you going to leave a review? And it's just like, just continue to beat around the bush, but they still get their low score. Like, you're still honest in terms of your review, but you're not honest with yourself and the person, in the sense. Like, if you're that fucking afraid, just take the coward's way out and do it anonymously. You can do that.
Well, and I think part of the reason they're afraid is because they feel like it's the circle jerk that we talked about before. Like, if I don't give them at least 3 stars, then they won't give me at least 3 stars. Da 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 da.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't.
See, and that's the thing is, like, whenever someone says that they're going, like, they either bought one of my books or that they're going to read it, I always make the joke, and I'm actually sort of serious with the joke, like, somewhat hoping, like, so are you going to be my first 1 star? Like, I'm like kind of letting them know, like, if you don't like it, it's okay. I don't care. It's not for everyone.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, why wouldn't you just be honest about how much, like, I gave Destiny a 4-star.
Yeah.
Because I don't like romance novels.
So it was never going to be a 5.
It was like, on principle, it was like, I would have had to be blown out of the water for it to be a 5-star. And I wasn't. I was pleasantly surprised. But I wasn't stunned and amazed.
Yeah.
If it had been like it had a lot of the same, you know, overall tones of Wuthering Heights, but it didn't blow me out of the water like Wuthering Heights. Wuthering Heights is the only good romance novel ever written, I think. Now,
in a twisted sense, like, because Destiny and I were talking about this while I was formatting the novel, and she's like, you probably have never even read a romance novel, have you? I'm like, I read Lolita. Like, yeah, it's very, you know,
child molesty.
It's very child molesty, but like the way Humbert views it, the way the character views it, it's romantic, even though it's not romantic in the, you know, literal objective sense. But to Humbert's subjective reality, that's a romance novel. He doesn't see himself as a predator. So, like,
which a lot of people who read Lolita don't fucking get.
Yeah. And also they you know, condemn Nabokov for, you know, writing it. It's like he didn't write it because he got his, you know, kicks from pedophilia. In fact, he was actually quite a prude when it came to sex in real life, but it was a story he felt he needed to write to convey the ugliness of humanity. But through that ugliness of humanity, the monster is not always going to see himself as the monster.
The monster never sees himself as the monster. That's the thing.
Yeah, and that's the point he was getting across. Like, he's doing this atrocious thing to a 12-year-old girl, but he sees it as, you know, as something completely. In fact, he says that, you know, she seduced him, kind of thing. And it's like, it just goes to show that the monster is always going to, you know, project the blame on someone else, or say like, no, that's not what I was doing. I was in love with her. It's like, no, like, no. So, like, in that sense, it's like, that's like Wuthering Heights, good romance story. Lolita, in a twisted sense, also a good romance story.
Well, yeah, no, I liked, like, I've always liked Wuthering Heights because I feel like it's the most realistic version of a romance story that could ever have been written.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, no, you love someone and then they end up married to somebody else, and then you end up married to somebody else, and then you both die separately and you're both unhappy, and that's how that goes.
Yeah. I feel like False Cathedrals amongst the indie world is going to sort of become, and I'm not saying that that False Cathedrals is even close to the caliber of the books I'm about to mention, but I feel like amongst the indie writing community, False Cathedrals is going to be the self-pubbed version of like Ulysses, Infinite Jest, Gravity's Rain, like books you own but never read, but they're like oh, this one's good because it's got this, you know, experimental formatting. It's like, but did you read it? No.
I thought I read it, but it was so boring.
I got like maybe like 20 pages into chapter 1. It just, nothing was happening.
And that's the other thing. The lack of patience that people have.
Yeah, like
I'm not miffed that no one's left a review. Because like you said, people, it just came out in December. People got busy lives. They take their time getting to shit. And that's fine. I get it. I'm not worried. But by the same token, like, especially in the case of a certain individual who only reads ebooks and also has a very self-inflated view of his own work.
I'm going to call bullshit on the whole he only reads ebooks, because he bought a physical copy of at least one of mine.
Did he read it?
He read a chapter because he marked his progress on Goodreads, and I flipped through the book like, okay, that's the end of chapter 1. So he read a chapter, and that was in like November or October of last year. Hasn't touched it since.
He asked me specifically if How to Cure was on ebook.
Yeah.
He's not going to buy it.
No.
As a paperback.
No.
He's not going to review it if he buys it as an ebook, because he's going to get to one certain sentence in chapter 1 and have a triggered orgasm. And that's going to be the end of it.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people are going to have that experience with How to Cure, which that's fine.
I feel like with him, he got to the end of chapter 1 of Arcadia, read the ending of chapter 1, which has like this sort of in Nathan's head fantasy of driving down the street and being blown by a Bond girl as the credits roll, kind of in his dream. And I feel like he read that and was like, ew, sex. I've had sex 3 times at least with my wife. Never again.
I'd rather be dehydrated.
I'd rather taste dehydration on my tongue and be half awake and half asleep. Anyway.
But the patience thing.
The patience thing, yes.
The patience thing. A lot of people get really depressed or get really let down because they don't get a million reviews right away, or they don't sell a million copies right away, or not every, like, because they have to work for it. And it's like, if you're gonna do this, it's gonna take time.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time, and you have to keep improving your skill. Like, you can't let... No, nobody's gonna buy the first one. So write the second one. Fewer people will buy the second one than may buy the third one. Like, it takes a lot of... You know this well. It takes a lot of time. And everybody's so impatient to be the next #1 seller on Amazon. And it's like, why? Why? Being the #1 seller, being the number, for all the ways that, for all the regard, the minimal regard that these people hold the rest of humanity in, why are you so upset that you haven't gotten their adulation on your very first try?
Yeah. See, what I tell people is that I'm the #1 selling author on my street.
I don't even know if I'm the #1 selling author in my family. Why I'm not so perturbed about members of my family not buying it, I'm not bothered. I'm not worried about it at all. But they're very likely to tell someone else, because there are enough indie authors inundating the system that it's not so difficult for the news to spread word of mouth.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, that just takes time. Like, if I keep writing novels, and I'm gonna keep writing novels, it'll sooner or later it'll start to pick up. Yeah. You're not gonna make it on the very first one. It's the very first one. Give yourself some time.
Give yourself some time, and give yourself that, like, to build up your momentum by having more than just one book out there.
Right.
Like, once you have, say, like 4 or 5, once you've got that number out, well, now you've got kind of something to pick from, and your name's going to be more than just the one book. You're going to have 4 or 5 books out there with your name on it that says, True. This is from me. You're going to appear more like even if they're just looking for that one book, it'll have their, get these 2 books together, because they usually lump 2 of the books together from the same author. Or because other customers have bought these books together, you might want to buy these books together, kind of thing. Right. It's not going to happen with the first book.
Well, and use that failure, because that is how a lot of new writers see it. Use that failure as the breeding ground for improvement.
Yeah.
If you're really so worried about why it failed, don't assume that it's because you're worthless as a human being. Go go back, read it, look at it, find what worked and find what didn't.
Yeah. But here's the issue is a lot of writers out there either can't read the work that they just published and see what worked and what didn't. They just, they see it as their baby.
I understand that, but at the same time, if it's going to be your baby, you have to raise your baby.
Well, here's the thing, though. Is they either do that, they either baby it or coddle it towards it's perfect how it is, or they go complete opposite, where it's complete trash, and don't know how to improve from the trash kind of thing. So they get stuck.
I have a lot more tolerance for the person who looks at it and goes, "That's complete trash," and I don't know how to improve, because that person wants to get better.
Yes.
They just don't know how. And those are the people who need to be encouraged, because they do, in some semblance, they do actually give a shit about their craft and their skill. It's the people who treat their work like their baby and it has to be coddled and it's perfect the way it is. No, it fucking isn't. Your baby, your toddler ain't perfect when he's shitting his pants in the middle of McDonald's. You have to teach him not to do that. Your book ain't perfect if none of the events in the plot line make any goddamn sense. You're gonna have to work on ironing those details out. Is that too harsh?
No, you're usually the one who shits on people.
I will take a massive dump on a lot of people.
This one it's also I've seen her attitude outside of writing, and to me it's not a pretty attitude.
Neither am I.
You're at least playful on Twitter. You're at least playful. This person's a dick. Their shit don't stink, but everyone else's does.
I hid the stuff that stink. That's the difference. Not that I hid it, but I buried it and tried to build something better.
Yeah,
there is a part of me.
Here's the thing, though, I was there before the shit was buried.
I know. Well, no, I know, and there's a part of me the first novel, the first ebook that I put out there, it was fucking awful. It was god fucking awful. And even though I've taken it down, there is the part of me that wants to do better, the part of me that wants to grow, hopes that some people at least still have it maybe on their Kindles, because if somebody can remember that and look at how shitty that was and then look at How to Cure, they'll at least see that A, I've improved, and B, knowing that that's still out there for someone to see it does bring me a certain sense of shame. Yeah. So I do feel compelled to continue to do better.
See, I remember, I want to say it was probably How to Cure. It was a version, and I want to say it opened up with this really weird chase scene or something.
No, that was not How to Cure.
What was that?
That was a technically fantasy, I suppose.
I feel like they
incorporated too much. Name. It incorporated too much actual mythology.
I remember reading something where it was it used Locke, and I want to say it used Tyranny. It used their names, but it just. I remember making the comment. I'm you need to work on your pacing because this is just too much all at once.
You did say that about the original version of How to Cure, but the weird chasing was a totally different story.
That was a complete.
That was a different story.
Why do I feel like it used the same character names though? No, it didn't. Now I remember. Okay, I don't remember the name exactly, but it wasn't Mallory. But that one I was just like that fantasy one or whatever was just like, this is too much.
Yeah, too much too fast. I need. Yeah, you were right.
You need to slow down. And then I want to say a certain version of How to Cure that, because I do remember reading Locke, where like he was being dropped off at the school. Like there was a part where he was being dropped off, and I think it originally took place in Oregon.
Tierney was being dropped off, and it did.
Tierney was being dropped off. Okay.
And it did originally take place in Oregon.
To me, that read like a American sort of nihilistic version of Harry Potter. So I was just like, no.
That's horrible.
So, given from what I've
seen, in a sense, it was.
Given from what I've seen from when we first started hanging out and talking and writing and whatnot, to what How to Cure has become, it is leaps and bounds better.
There's an actual story here.
There's an actual story. It's fleshed out. It takes its time. Like, it's not... You weren't trying to, like, hit the ground running with getting the reader invested. You kind of... I mean, like, chapter 1, sure, like, it has that shock value. Or certain little pinpoints of shock value throughout that kind of, for me, it was like, especially the ending, was like, okay, that was extreme. Let's see if she can top it. And from the proof version, from, I guess you could call it the advanced reader's copy, because even, well, the beta copy. The beta copy, you didn't top chapter 1. Who knows if you did?
I don't know that it's because necrophilia doesn't occur anywhere else. It's just exchanged for
it doesn't have to be
more blatant pedophilia.
It doesn't even have to be necrophilia, like I said. Like, but then again, like even the pedophilia scene near the end,
it was
like, it happened.
As descriptive.
Yeah, I'm like, it happened. Or like even a character's death, which I don't think I realized was a suicide at first.
You didn't. I had to include. I included that, and I hope I did it convincingly, because I didn't want.
I didn't care for the character, so when I saw that they were dead, I was just like, yeah, okay, that's a thing now. Or the other character that, sacrificed a part of themselves and then ends up dying anyway. I was just like, okay, well, they're dead now. Like,
ooh.
But
this was not planned.
No, that was not planned. Like, to the point where it's like, I'm paying, like, I enjoy doing it for me. I enjoyed doing it, working on it with you. I enjoyed working on it with Destiny, because you people are actual friends that I have normal conversations with, So, like, I was able to be on the phone with her while formatting it, and it wasn't always about work. We'd just be bullshitting about whatever. And with you, I can just, like, make fun of you.
You do that anyway.
When I got to the first set of,
since we met.
When I got to the first set of ellipses, I'm like, so does this person not know how? Because I wasn't reading it, I was just formatting. Like, so does this person like not know English? Is this person drunk? Like, what's going on? Like, why are there so many ellipses? Especially since you didn't. Like, I had to go and, like, add the spaces to all of them.
The more you complain about it, the less I regret it.
And you know what would also cut down your page count? That white page. To where instead of having to where every chapter...
You had formatted it correctly.
No, you wanted it to where the white there was going to be like if it ended on the right page, have the other side of the page be white so the chapter always starts on the right page. That's what you wanted. You wanted those extra blank pages just to add length because you didn't care. I'm just gonna be like no from here on out with that one. If you really want to cut down your page count.
I don't care.
That would be like what 36
you
pages.
Could maybe not worry so much about the white pages, but make the font a little bit smaller so it doesn't feel like I'm reading an oversized, overly dark children's book. That'd be great.
That's what your book is, though, right? It's a children's book.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
It's kids.
Definitely for kids.
It's Chapter kids who are about high school age. I want
children everywhere to see.
It's the characters are like high school age.
So they are high school age.
So it's for kids.
Technically young adults.
They're children.
Well, to you and me now.
A young adult is 20 to like 30.
A young adult is technically 18 to 27.
No. 18 and 19, you're still technically a teenager because teen
legally you are an adult.
Age-wise, you are still a teen.
That's why I say technically.
Technically. But in reality, you're still a teenager at 18 and 19. Once the teen leaves your age, now you're an adult. You're a new adult. You're a young new adult. That's why new adult and young adult are the fucking same thing, in my opinion.
I didn't know new adult was a phrase.
It's technically a genre that doesn't have recognition.
Is that what the NA keeps that I keep?
It's not. It's not Narcs Anonymous.
I thought it was like not applicable to young adult, and I was like, I don't understand what the fuck that means.
No,
not
it's new.
Not applicable / young adult, and I was like, I don't fucking get it.
No, it's new adult.
That's significantly less interesting to me than not applicable / young adult. All right, let's take a break here because I actually have to pee.